And as always, entering with laughter. Welcome back to Honestea Talks. I'm Rintita Singh.
And I am Ashley Peña.
All right. So we'll just jump right into it. I'm so animated today.
I love that.
Today's topic is just divine timing, right? That's what we're calling it? Yes, divine timing. And also to let you guys know, this is the final episode of season 5. We are going to take a nice long summer break.
Oh, yeah.
We will return to you with new episodes in the fall.
And new guests.
New guests. Yes, I'm excited for that. So that's kind of how this topic came about for the last one. Divine timing came about because of when we were talking about when we wanted to take our break or how long we wanted to take a break for.
Yes.
And our previous break was only 4 weeks. And something leading up to this one, when I asked you about it, for some reason in my head, I already had this idea of going maybe longer, but I wanted to ask you first. And the second I said maybe a summer break, you were like, yes,
please.
Yeah.
I was like, definitely.
And I was like, okay, perfect. We're on the same page.
It was divine.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes to show like how aligned we are too in our own spiritual journey and in our friendship as well.
For sure.
To respect that in one another, and to honor that time when it's needed.
For sure. And I think that's what's so great. I think obviously we could definitely do an episode on just communication because I think that would be great.
Oh God, yeah.
Because this is all about conversation, right? Yes. And communication. And I honestly, what I love really quickly, because this is kind of off topic, but at the same time it's not. I think the reason we even started this was because of the fact that we have very healthy conversations.
Yeah.
And a very healthy form of communication that I think a lot of people can learn from and grow from. If not the topics itself, the conversations themselves, right? The fact that we like listen to each other and truly like honor each other and respect each other. I think that's not common, not in friendships, not in family, not in just any people that just communicate with each other on the street, you know, like it's unfortunately rare to have healthy communication. And so we should definitely do a topic on that.
That's definitely a topic. I was thinking about that the other day, actually, like, this is probably the healthiest communication I've ever had in my life, is especially in a friendship.
For sure.
You know, and, I think that's one of the reasons that I love just, if people can just watch any episode, is just to gain, if you're going to learn something, you'll at least learn how to have healthy communication with one another, because it involves, I mean, we're patient with one another, you know, it's not about shifting or like me pulling you to yours. I can't talk today. Me pulling you to my side or vice versa.
Exactly.
It's literally just honoring what this person has to say and allowing them to have the space to say it without judgment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I think that does, in a sense, tie into like divine timing and all of that, because then it kind of flows. It's just like in conversation, it's like something that flows naturally.
Yep.
Right. And in some cases in life and certain situations in life, there are going to be things that you kind of have to work towards doing and making happen. Right. Like sometimes you got to open doors and like create them or yank them open, because you're like, I'm not waiting around. Okay. Like I'm open.
Or even close them.
Or close them. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Definitely. Lots of that. But at the same time, sometimes you try to open doors and you try to force them shut, right? In like the example that you just gave, and it's just not the time, right? And I think knowing that and allowing yourself to be guided intuitively is really important, because it's easy, at least for me sometimes, it's easy to want it to be so now, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Because we're like, I know what I want this to be like. I want this. But that divine timing is essential.
Yeah. And I think it's also, it's trusting that, like what you just said with the like, oh, I want it now. It's because we get that sense of like, we know what's coming and we know what we're capable of and like, we're ready for it. But and so we're like, okay, how do I get the ball rolling on this, you know?
Yes.
But then reminding yourself, okay, everything else has fallen into place right when it was meant to. So let me just trust it with this feeling now. It's a whole new feeling and experience. And let me just trust that it will exactly how it has in the past.
Yes. Oh, I love that you mentioned that, because that's a really helpful tip and tool, I think.
Yeah.
That has helped me, and that even I've worked on with the people that I've worked with, is the fact that like, you've already been here. You've been here.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You've been at this place where you're like, when is this gonna change?
Yeah.
I'm never gonna see it, right? Like, I want it now. And you surpassed it. You're already now in a new space, just like you said, right? You're in a new experience, but you've already risen above whatever it was that you were struggling with before. You've already like surpassed your goals from before. And now you just have new things. So that feeling feels foreign to you, because you're like, it's so uncomfortable, but you've been there. And now you're not even realizing how many times everything worked out for you perfectly.
Exactly.
Divinely,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So when you do that as an exercise, when you sit with yourself and you're like, how many times have I been here? And how did it work out for me? It worked out perfectly for me, right? Each and every single time, I was divinely guided at the perfect timing. And here I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Oh, it's incredible. Oh, but it's hard.
Do you have an example for yourself in your life where you were like stressing out and then you just finally were like, you know what? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then it all worked out exactly as it needed to.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many examples, but I have a few. It's crazy because I was talking to my mom about this recently, because we've gone through a lot of that, you know, growing up, because she was like a single mom. There were a lot of struggles that we had, and a lot of that came from like, you know, we want our own space where we're going to live. And a lot of times we would like wait and kind of get frustrated because we weren't being guided like on where to go or where to live, and, you know, where we could afford to live. And then, you know, even though we were really frustrated and it was really hard to maintain that faith and trust, just like you said, there were so many times where if we wouldn't have waited, we wouldn't have had the perfect opportunities that we had to live in spaces that we've had the honor and the privilege to live in, right? Like, the places that we lived were brought to us in the perfect timing, right? In a time and space where we really wanted a specific thing, and was
You're freezing.
even though it was divinely. How are you? Oh. Can you see me?
I can see you, but you're frozen. You were frozen like that for a second.
No way. But am I moving now?
Slowly. Or am I still it's a little pixelated.
Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
Technology.
It happens. We're not in control of it, you know? Like,
no.
We do our best.
This is God is like, you're sharing my divine secrets with divine timing.
For real. It's too
We're going to slow you down and freeze you for a second.
Talk about divine timing, right? Oh my gosh. But yeah, honestly, I've had so many experiences like that, but for sure growing up, it was really, really significant for me, because we were almost in a space of desperation. Like, we really need to move out of where we're currently at. And even though it felt like nothing was going to change, it changed exactly when it needed to. There were so many times where our environment shifted at the exact time that it needed to shift. And this has happened, I mean, when I moved to California, this happened when we moved to San Diego. I mean, there's just, when we moved to and when we left, right? Like, there's just so much that has happened in my life. I have so many examples. What about you?
Okay, so the first one that popped in my mind was I think I've told you the story before, but it's way back when I was in New York. So I'd finished my time in Aruba and I had to do a semester in New York. And, you know, I was probably like in the midst, maybe like 4 years into more of my spiritual journey and trusting, you know, God. And I was on a budget. Like dad would give me a certain amount of money to pay rent and like food and things like that. And it was my friend's birthday or something. We wanted to go out to celebrate, but I was like, I have no cash. I have like nothing. And there was my mom had a separate account for me at a credit union where she would put in like $50 every 2 weeks or something like that. But even that I would like use. So I was like, okay, I know I've got 50, so I can pull out 40. So I go to the ATM that was like at the corner store by our apartment. And I go and I pull out, you know, I do the $40 and you froze again. You've got like the cup to your face.
It's like
oh my
loading.
God. Oh, there we go.
Am I still frozen?
No.
Am I good? Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're moving now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I put in my card, I do $40 on there. I grab my money, and then I'm like walking away and I start counting and there was $80. So like someone had left $40 in the ATM and I'm like looking around, you're frozen again. And I'm like, whose is this?
Wow.
And literally like no one was there. No one was there to claim this money or anything. Like I remember there was no one else in the corner store. And I was like, oh my God, like literally God answered at that. Like it was so divine. And I ended up like not even using all of it.
Wow.
When I went out. I just used the $40 and I kept the other 40 and it got me through whatever food I needed for the rest of the week or whatever. I don't even remember, but it was just like,
of course,
holy crap. Like, thank you, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And it really is like that, right? And I think it's hard to believe that that's possible when you're in a situation where, you know, you don't have proof. You know, you don't have proof of a miracle, right? But that's when miracles happen. That's when divinity happens. It happens in the time where you really think it's not going to happen or you think it's not possible, and then boom, it just shows up for you in, I mean, miraculous, amazing ways. It's so
divine.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's so divine.
It is. It really is
the other thing that I think of is when we got the apartment in Belmont, like,
my
essentially
God,
you were at a point where you were like, I need a place to live and whatever pops up is gonna work. And I remember like you texting me. Yeah, you know, like, I remember you texting me a screenshot that the agent had sent you of a condo in like Redwood Shores or something, asking me to be your roommate. And I was like, whoa, this came out of nowhere. Like I wasn't expecting that because it was a 2-bedroom.
Yes.
But then like we went and saw it. But something didn't sit right with me internally.
Yeah.
With that place. Cause I was like, no, I think we can get something cheaper for a 2-bedroom. Yeah. And then we went back to the gym and looked on Craigslist and then we found the place that we found and we rushed there to look at it. And all of that felt like aligned AF. Like, I mean, and from the door,
everything. It's so crazy too, because beforehand, right? Like I had gone on a road trip, just so that people know the context of like this situation. Like I went on a road trip prior from Miami to California with my best friend at the time that was gonna move in with me. Right. And so I had plans to move out. Like I had concrete plans to move out, and I needed to move out by October something. Because the people that I was living with at the time were leaving. They were moving out. So I had nowhere to stay, had nowhere to go. And then when we got to California, he went back to Miami. So here I am, like I have nowhere to go. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'll find an apartment for myself then, you know? And I couldn't find anything for myself, like nothing. And then this lady reached out to me from someone that I know, from a mutual friend. and was like, hey, I have this condo, but you're gonna need a roommate. And I'm like, the only person, mind you, I don't even know Ronnie that well at this point, okay? But I know her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew her spiritually, I just knew her. So I was like, the only person that I would consider living with is Ronnie, right? It was so natural for me to even say that. It was so weird, but
Yeah.
I knew that.
But the feeling was mutual. The feeling was totally mutual.
Weird, right? We just
Yeah.
knew. Like, that in itself was divine, because
yeah,
you probably shouldn't do that with just anybody, because
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's like hard. You know, you just don't want to live with just anybody. It
Yeah.
really is intense if it's not the right alignment. But it felt like that for us, for sure. And now we totally know why, because we were definitely like just in alignment with each other, and had such an amazing time living together. But it really did all fall into place. And the place that, like you said, that we saw, I didn't like. I was just in a place of desperation, right? Like, I just needed to move somewhere. And thankfully you were like, no, let's just see what we want. What do we want? Like, where do we want to live?
Yeah.
What do we want it to look like? And we did that, and we got exactly what we wanted, and more, honestly. Like, it was so perfect.
Yeah, we did.
I know, me too. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Oh, well, it's interesting too. When we talked earlier about the fact, you know, even with doors closing, right? Like, that's kind of what happened with your friendship, right? Like, with the person that you were gonna move in with, like,
totally,
because the alignment wasn't there.
Yes.
Right. And like, you had this trust when it came to like how much you were going to pay. You knew what you could afford and things like that. And there was still fear with that person in moving forward in that direction.
Yes. And, you know, I love that you mentioned that, because when you're currently going through something, it's really hard to see that.
Yeah,
it is really challenging. It's not as easy as like how we're talking about it now.
No.
We can talk about what we've gone, because right now I'm going through that as well in my journey right now. And it's really uncomfortable. It's hard. It's in no way is it easy, but it's not supposed to be. That's what the whole point of those moments are, right?
Exactly.
In that time when that happened, I was not like, oh, whatever, like, they left, divine timing. Oh, whatever. Like, I was like, I need a place to live. But at the same time, I did find space to calm myself down and to enjoy life. Like, remember, we were kind of like, what do we do? And then we just went to Milagros. We had fun, right? We drank, we ate some great food, and then we just went trick-or-treating. Like, even though it was hard, and it was hard for me to understand why everything was happening the way that it was, I can see now how perfect it was, how divine it was, and how meant to be everything was, and how, just like you said, that chapter was definitely meant to close. I've replayed it so many times, you know, over the years, because this was a person that was in my life for so long.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to understand why that door was closing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't get concrete answers like that. Sometimes you just have to trust that it's exactly what is meant to happen to serve your highest good and their highest good.
Exactly.
Because maybe it's also to serve them. And maybe for whatever reason, your place in their life is not allowing them to thrive either, right?
Exactly.
So for whatever reason, things in our lives and our journeys, just like they are currently, they happen for a reason sometimes that we can't see or won't know.
Yeah.
But if they were to happen differently, then it wouldn't be to serve our highest good. Like, everything that happened, even if I couldn't really understand it or come to peace with it at the time, served my highest good, served your highest good, served their highest good. And that was why it was so divine. You know? Even though it kind of felt destructive, even though it kind of felt chaotic for a while, it was in perfect alignment, and it worked out perfectly.
And that chaos is only in that moment, right?
Yes.
Like, once you get beyond it and you realize, oh, this was supposed to happen instead, that's when it's like, okay, I understand, type of thing. That's why that saying, right? Hindsight is 20/20. Like, you can look back and see it with clarity, but in the moment it can be very, you know, but I think that's an important lesson in life too, is to not get caught up in the, because then you can't get to the moment of clarity.
Exactly.
So understanding and trusting that divine timing and that it's happening for a reason is what allows you to reach the point of clarity.
Absolutely. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes, absolutely. Because it's normal for things to feel chaotic when you don't
Oh
have
yeah.
that clarity yet. But then,
Mm-hmm.
just like you said, it definitely takes, you have to get to the space where, especially when you've had so many of these moments as practice, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now I've gone through this so many times, I'm sure you have. And so even the people that are tuning in, like through life, you go through a lot of moments like this, and they're
Yeah.
all exercises for you, right?
Yep.
They're
Yep.
all opportunities for you to practice this muscle, to exercise this muscle.
Yes.
So now you know, like, okay, if I'm experiencing something chaotic, it's temporary. And I
Yes.
know that as long as I'm aware of that and I'm doing my part,
Uh-huh.
whatever that may be, I'm gonna get to the place where this is not gonna be chaotic anymore, and I'm going to move
Mm-hmm.
past it, and then there's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
something new, and that's just what this journey is about. And we've had
Exactly.
so many circumstances, situations that have allowed us to practice that,
Yeah.
to where now you're like, you can do it
Oh,
because
totally. Yeah.
you've already gone through so many things that maybe didn't make sense at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, but then made sense after that. You were like, oh my gosh, thank you, God, because that worked out perfectly for me, even if it felt like it didn't.
Yeah. Something that just came to my mind is even when we know we have to face something and we're so afraid to face it, but it's like, I know that I need to face this because I have to get to the other side of it. And it's coming up
Yes.
for that reason. For me, it was a big one was when we were living in San Diego and we had decided that it was time to move back to our respective hometowns. And
Yes.
I knew there was a certain conversation that I had to have with my dad. And I was like, oh my God, the anxiety and the stress that I was feeling leading up to that was just like, I didn't want to do it. I really didn't
Of
want to
course.
do it. But literally I had to coach myself and I had to say those exact things. And part of it was everything I've experienced leading up to it. Like I've had to have certain difficult conversations with people in my life. And now it
Yeah.
was time to face my parents. And part of that healing was that conversation with my dad.
Yeah.
And so I literally had to coach myself. And like when I would be in my room, I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't supposed to be going through this.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
but it was all the other experiences that allowed me to have the confidence in that moment to coach myself before, during, and after.
Yes.
And it turned out great. Like, look at where I'm at now, you know? But
Exactly.
again,
Yes.
2020, when I look back.
Exactly. And most of the time it's like that because
Yeah.
there are things you're going to have to navigate through and work through in the
Hmm.
present moment. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to be at the place yet where you look back because you're going through it,
Exactly.
right? You're
Exactly.
going through it, you're
Yes.
growing through it. So you have to
Yes.
be there. You have to be there in that discomfort. It's just part of the process. And I
Yeah.
know it's uncomfortable. I mean, I've been a witness to it for so long and I'm currently like doing it again. And it's
Yeah.
hard, but
Yeah.
it's nothing that you can't overcome because
Exactly.
you've already done it a whole bunch of times. You're
Yeah.
going to always get to the place eventually once which is something that you said that I think is so important. You said, I knew I had to confront something, right? A lot of times in those moments, there are things we have to confront,
Yeah.
things we have to do,
Hmm.
right, in order for us to like level up or grow. And
Yeah.
when we do that work, right, because there is a level of work that is required on our end,
Yes. Yes.
then that's where that divinity kind of shows up for us. Because
Yeah.
when we step in, we do what we have to do because we're being guided intuitively and we follow through with what we're guided to do,
Hmm.
then things line up and they fall into place. And then you're able to look back and say, no
Yeah.
wonder this happened the
Yep.
way that it did, right?
Yep.
And you can't see that when you're currently going through it. That's the whole point. It feels counterintuitive and counterproductive because you're like, why is this happening? But that's on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
It really, and I know that because just like you know that because of how many times
Yep.
I've wanted to kind of push away from that feeling
Yeah.
and like resist the
Yep.
discomfort, just to realize that like the whole point of the discomfort is to grow through it
Yeah.
and then be able to later on in the future look back and say, no wonder. That was
Yeah.
exactly how it was supposed to be.
Oh, totally, totally. And it's funny because that's going to be life, right? We're always going to be faced with something. But the cool thing is, as soon as you turn on that like awareness of it and you start realizing it, you get through it quicker because
Yes.
then it's like, okay, I'm at this point. Okay, what do I need to do to get through this moment? Because now I understand why I'm feeling this or
Yeah.
experiencing these things. I've experienced this before. So how can I accept what's happening this time around and with ease and grace move through it to the other
Yes.
side, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You said something so important, and I think that's the one of the huge reasons why we used to stay longer in certain situations
Mm-hmm.
is that acceptance, right?
Yeah.
The most challenging part about these moments are it's the fact that we don't accept what's going on. A lot of times we suppress it or we avoid it,
Yeah.
and so we try to distract ourselves, or we just don't we don't sit with what it is that we need to sit with, and we don't
Yeah.
tackle and take on what it is that we need to take on. And
Yeah.
so what happens a lot of times is that then it builds up and it turns into an even bigger thing, or
Yeah.
it becomes an even longer test or a longer journey, a longer experience,
Yep.
because
Yeah.
you're not accepting it, right? You're not
Yeah.
honoring it. You're not being with it, right?
Yeah.
And the more you get comfortable with that discomfort, the more you get comfortable with, oh, I know what this is, right? You're like familiar with it. Oh, I know what this
Mm-hmm.
is. Like, this is something that I have to deal with, something that
Yeah.
I have to accept and face and conquer and grow through and rise above. Then you know the deal. It's not like
Yeah.
you're not doing what a lot of times happens, where you're like, oh no, I don't want to do, I need to get out of this now. Let me
Yeah.
just avoid, let me just distract, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have to face what I have to face, so I don't close doors, so I don't do essentially what I have to do to grow and to level up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't stay there as long because you know the drill. Like, you know what's
Yeah.
necessary, you know what's needed of you, and you're
Yeah.
willing, because you're on this journey and you're committed to this journey. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do what I have to do, and it's part of it. Let me
Yeah.
keep going.
I was totally 2020. I was totally sabotaging myself because I literally was like, "We're in a pandemic. That's my excuse. I can't do anything anyway. I'm just gonna coast. I'm gonna
Oh my
coast. I
gosh.
don't want to face anything. I will have my nature's candy and
Oh
do the stuff and not
of
face
course.
it. And now I'm finally like, the new year started, birthday rolled around, there's certain things that force me to face it again. I'm like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
repeating the cycle.
Yes.
Time to choose differently, put me
Yes.
first, reprioritize, and get back on that flow of things. But yeah.
Yes.
So I did have a question for you in regards to
Yes.
divine timing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you recall when you consciously started trusting divine timing?
It's such a great question. Yeah. So, and again, it comes in waves, because sometimes presently
Yeah.
it's hard. Like,
Yeah.
when you're in a situation, like, I'm being 100% transparent and real, just because I know
Yeah.
that, everyone has a different experience and is going through something different. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, it's easy to say, oh, like, move past the discomfort, when the discomfort is like, I don't know, like an obstacle that may be annoying or uncomfortable, but it's not like um, debilitating or like truly affecting you in a negative way, right? Like,
Yeah.
some people are in an abusive situation. Some people are in really hard situations that it's not super easy to move past, right? So I do want
Yeah.
to honor
Yeah.
that and honor my own struggles sometimes with like trusting divine timing, because it's not always easy, especially when
No.
you're in a space where you're like, hello, like, this is affecting me on a deep level and I need
Yeah.
to move past it, and why can't I, right? But there's so much to gain from those moments, and that's what I think is important. to take away from this conversation. But I think when that shifted for me, right? Because even when it's challenging, I know and trust and have full faith in divine timing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to be aware of that, right? And that really shifted for me when, again, I've experienced it so much along my journey, but I don't think I was aware of what it was or how it was serving me.
That was
right?
going to be my next
I
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one was when you actually consciously started trusting it. And then the second part after that was going to be, can you look back on your life and realize when you were doing it without realizing that you were doing it?
Oh my God. Totally. Because I mean, it happens, I think, when I was younger, because I said I had faith, but I don't think I really did, because I was so angry. Like I was not healed. And it was hard for me to accept that like things were working for my highest good when it didn't appear that way on the outside,
Yeah.
Like I had to really like wake up, in order to see all of the magic behind everything that was happening, even behind the things that were difficult. But for me, definitely, I think the huge shift to where I was like, oh, like this is real. This isn't coincidental. This isn't like mistake. This isn't just like, oh, it's just a coincidence that these things aligned. I really, really was like, wow, this is so divine. Like everything is working for me. And in alignment was when I moved to California, because I didn't have anything in my favor concretely, right? Like I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anyone to kind of like carry me, you know? But I was so divinely carried. It's still like mind blowing to me. And since then, I'm so aware of that even in the moments where it appears externally that I don't have that concrete support, like I can't show you that I'm being carried right now. But I'm living proof of the fact that I'm carried by something much greater than me, right? Like I get goosebumps. And that was crazy for me because everything was so divine. Like when even the date, I just picked a random date. It's not like somebody told me like, oh, move on this date. I was intuitively guided to leave on the specific date. Everything worked out perfectly, divinely, even with the struggles, even with the obstacles, everything that happened there, everything that has happened since then has been so divine, even when it doesn't appear to be divine, because maybe it's a failure or a fall. Maybe it's like I lost for example, I've that looks like a failure, but that was so divine. And everything has been so divinely orchestrated and planned. Consciously, that is when it shifted for me. And then I was able to look back at my life and just be overwhelmed by like every single time that happened for me. Like every single that has happened. I don't know a moment, looking back, I don't know a moment that didn't happen for me, So yeah, it's pretty crazy. What about you?
I would say kind of like you, it was after I didn't get residency and I chose to move in with my brother and his wife in Santa Rosa. And like, it was probably the lowest moment in my life that I can think of, because I'm grateful. I'm blessed. Like I had a home, I had loving parents. I'm so grateful for everything in that regard. But I never felt like I was in a low until I graduated medical school, didn't get residency. The person that I thought I was in love with went back to their ex. Like it was the lowest moment. And the first job I got was front desk at 24-hour Fitness for like $9 an hour. So like, but I just trusted it. I was like, look, I got bills to pay and this is the first job I got. So I'm going to trust this wherever it's taking me. And I haven't looked back since. Like that, I've only come up since that moment. And it's because I've trusted whatever God has put in front of me from that moment forward. And I'm happier than I've ever been in life. I'm so grateful. Looking back at life, gosh, there's so many moments that I can think of where I'm just like, I was lost literally and figuratively. And
Definitely.
I was led in the right direction. And one example that comes to mind is I used to do orthopedic sales, and I would have to deliver these range of motion devices to patients that were post knee replacements. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'd have to go up in the cut. So like it would be like the mountainous areas of NorCal, Placerville specifically, or places like that, where at that time the GPS that you had, or that I had, was this like little tiny TV monitor you'd suction cup to the windshield. And when you would get in certain areas, it would lose signal. Shoot. And then you didn't know where you were going. So I remember literally like I got to this like fork in the road and I had no signal, and I'm like, okay, do I go right or left? And I just trusted the direction I was given, and I ended up at the right place.
Wow.
But that's like one of the like ones that I can consciously remember when I wasn't really connected, but I just trusted. Like I was like, God, take me in the right direction. I don't know where I'm going. But one of the other times after having started my spiritual journey was when I applied for medical school. Like, because at the same time that I applied for medical school, I also applied for a job, a supervisor job at Kaiser. And I was like, okay, whatever comes back first is the direction I'm heading in. I never heard from about the supervisor job, and I got into medical school, and I trusted that. And that's part of what led me to where I am now, you know?
Yeah.
But I left it in God's hands. Like, look, universe, this or this. Stay in this corporation and continue that way, or start something totally new in a country I've never been to out of the US. Like, yeah. So trusting divine, that was definitely, looking back, I was trusting divine timing on that.
Oh my gosh. It's so powerful when you can look back and see that, even in the moments, you know, when you shared the lowest point for you, right? A lot of times we think that those moments are moments that are kind of like directionless, or maybe, you know, like we feel like, man, my path failed, right? Or I failed on my path. Yep. But truly, those moments are so powerful. They can be leading.
They're leading you right to your path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they really, really are. They are not taking you off course. They're putting you on course, and it doesn't feel that way in the moment.
No,
because you're at a low, because a lot of times we have this like idea of where we're supposed to go, and sometimes too, what happens, and this has happened to me, is that like we're like, hey God, where do I go? What do I do? Like before I moved to California, I was asking God every day, where do you want me to go, God? Like, I'm trying to leave. Where do you want me to go? Gainesville, Orlando? Like, where do you want me to go? I was really, you know, having a conversation with God and the universe, because I wanted to move, but I didn't know where. And I was kind of getting uncomfortable because I wasn't being guided. But the moments even where you're not being guided, it's working. You're being guided. You're being led. Yeah. Maybe it's being led to stay in a certain place because there's unfinished business, or there's something that needs to happen, or there's something that you need to learn. Right? And so even in the moments where you're like, I'm not getting answers, or I'm feeling super low, and I'm not, like, it feels like everything's just not working for me. Yeah. Just know that it's working for you. You just probably can't see it yet.
Oh, totally.
And it's working so much for you so that it can catapult you to where you are meant to be. Yeah. And you will be able to see that in the future. You may not be able to see that right now. Yeah. But you will be able to see.
I think something important to remember in those moments where you're just like, come on, God, what's the next move? You know, blah, 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 is also not judging yourself for thinking that you're stuck, you know, like that's definitely something I've had to work on in the last like year and a half, is, and not necessarily in work and how I help people, but like my love life, which is a part of my whole life. Right. But thinking, like, judging myself for feeling a certain way or wanting to hold on to something, but it's like, but I can't, like, there's something keeping me in this right now, you know, like as much as I want to be like, I'm done, I'm so done, but
For
like,
sure.
it still comes around and it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop judging myself. I'm going to just let it be what it is. And it will go about its merry way when it's time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like I'm finally at that point where it's like, okay, I can turn the page on to the next chapter. Like,
Yes.
which it's hard. It's hard while you're in it, but trust yourself and your judgment. One, don't judge yourself, but trust your judgment, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I get that. Because I like that you mentioned that, because sometimes there's a few reasons as to why things don't kind of like that chapter doesn't end yet, or something
Yeah.
doesn't, or we're not moving yet. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons. It could be because you have something to learn. It could
Exactly.
be, right? It could be because you haven't healed yet. It could be because something needs to come full circle. It could be because it's not time.
Yeah.
It could be, there's a lot of different factors that come into play. Some of
Exactly.
them you will see, some of them you may not see. But it's so true, and it's so important to not judge yourself when you're kind of not in movement yet.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're doing everything you need to be doing,
Yeah.
and the chapter doesn't close.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
like,
ready. I'm ready to turn it.
Yeah. Right? And God's like, no, you're not really in control here. Like, you know, you're doing your part, you're doing great, but it's not time yet.
Yeah.
And that can be hard, because then sometimes we think that has to do with us.
Yep.
Or we're like, man, is this my fault that I'm not like moving into something else, or able to close this chapter?
Yep.
But I remember when I was in the last relationship that I was in, I haven't been in a like committed relationship since then, but I was in this relationship for a while, and I wanted to leave this relationship, but I did not know how. And it wasn't, I feel like none of us, we both knew that we weren't supposed to be in that relationship, but we didn't close that chapter. And if it wouldn't have closed exactly when it did, I mean, things would not have worked out for both of us in the way that it has.
Yeah.
And so you can't really see that in the moment, because you're like, oh, why are we going through this? You know, like, why is this happening? This isn't fair, or whatever. You know, like I'm ready for what I deserve, and they're probably feeling the same way. Like, I want, you know, to be in alignment with whatever it is that I want to be in alignment with. But truly, things end up happening when they're meant to happen.
Exactly.
And like you said, then you reach a point where you're like, okay, now this chapter can close.
Yeah.
And I can move on. But sometimes that's not something that happens overnight all the time. Sometimes maybe it can. Sometimes it does. There have been moments.
Oh, yeah.
Like when we found the apartment in Belmont, it was quick. It was like,
oh, yeah.
We didn't have, I didn't have a place to live. And then all of a sudden we were moving in.
Yeah.
And it was quick. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it's a journey, and sometimes you have to learn things, and it takes time. Like you said, it's important not to judge yourself when you're stuck or not in movement, because you're not going to stay stuck there forever, no matter what. Like things are going to move exactly when they're supposed to.
Exactly. And I think a good piece of advice that just came to me was that, you know, it's divine timing when you feel peace within yourself when it's happening. So like, I finally feel peace within myself to be able to say, okay, I can turn the chapter. Now it's time, you know? And whereas if I tried to say that 3 or 4 months ago, it'd be like, okay, it's time to turn the page. You know, like I'm just like, this, everything is so different in the way that I'm saying that it's like,
wow,
okay, clearly it's not time. But when I think one way to know when it's time is when you feel that peace within yourself. And that's when you know that's the divine timing of it.
For sure.
At least for myself.
That's such a great tip. Yeah. I can so understand that and resonate with that. That's so true.
Yeah.
Because if just like kind of we talked about it earlier, when you try to force things, right? That's counterintuitive. It's counterproductive, because it's not the divine timing for it.
No.
When you feel that ease that you're talking about, that you're sharing of like, okay, next, right? Like now I can close a chapter. That doesn't sound to me like chapter closed.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm done with this book. Right? It sounds so much more peaceful. It sounds divine, right? It sounds like, okay, this is for whatever reason. Maybe it's
Yeah.
something that's happening energetically that has to have shift or happen before then. It's, again, there's so many reasons as to why this happens, but that's such a great tip, because you truly do know when it kind of just feels natural. Like, okay,
Yeah.
now this is closing.
Yeah.
And so this feels right,
Yeah.
versus like, this isn't closing. What can I
Yeah.
do to just make sure that it closes? It's a very different energy there.
Yes, definitely.
I love that.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have any other questions or things you want to say in regards to it? Because I'm like, nothing's coming to me right now.
Yeah, let me see. So when it comes to divine timing, um, I guess, what is it that you've learned? What have you taken away the most? Like, what is your, I guess, something that you've learned that this has offered you? Like, trusting divine timing. Like, a lot of people I've seen, I think it has a lot to do with like the society we live in. A lot of people do want to force things to happen. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I think in some situations, yeah, we have to create doors. We have to open them ourselves. We have to have that kind of like mindset of like, I'm going to make this happen for me because I deserve it, and no one else is going to do it for me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where we do that are not productive and not helpful and not effective, because we're trying to force something to be, or for something to close, like we just mentioned. So what is something that's valuable? Why is it important? Why do you find it important to trust divine timing and to not constantly like force everything? Why does it serve you to trust divine timing? What do you think?
Honestly, personally, it serves me to live a happier life. Like, every time that I've forced things or rushed through things in my life, it's never led me to happiness. It's only led me to depression or overeating or things like that. Whereas releasing that idea of control, little by little over time, because all those experiences did lead to this point in my life where I do trust whatever unfolds in front of me, it's led to this happiness. And I said it earlier, right? I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, looking back at my life, probably, I mean, since childhood, at least. So yeah, so that's, to me, that's the value in it. If the purpose of life is to be happy, like, it's led me right to that.
Yeah. Well, and that makes so much sense if you think about the energy behind control and wanting to control things, right? Versus the energy of acceptance, which I think that is so powerful. It's so much higher if you think about the vibrational scale or how energy works, right?
Yeah.
Acceptance and trust and faith, like all of that is very light, and it's very
Yeah.
peaceful and calming, and it allows more joy, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about control, it's like constrictive and it's
Yeah.
heavy and it's dense,
Yeah.
right? Like, energetically, it makes sense as to why trusting in divine timing and having faith would allow you to be happier, would allow you the
Yeah.
space to create more joy and to embody more joy and to experience more joy, because it's high vibrational, right? Control and like fear and, right, all of that is very low energy. So it
Yeah.
makes sense. And I agree with you 100%. I think it's very easy to want to control things because we've kind of been programmed to do that. We've been
Yeah.
conditioned to make it happen, control, do what you gotta do, create, right? To where
Yeah.
even like I've seen a lot in the spiritual community when it comes to manifestation, that there's still so much control in that. Like,
Oh yeah.
manifest and create your reality.
Yeah.
Right? When it's like there's also so much value in like allowing things to be taken care of for you, and
Yeah.
to allow yourself to be divinely guided, and
Yeah.
to allow your intuition to guide you too, and to allow time to happen, and to not try to force things to happen, especially things that have been shown to you that are not working.
Yeah.
When we try to
Yeah.
force that, we really are like giving away so much energy to try to make something be that is just simply not meant to be, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned that, because I truly, I know within myself that it has so much value. I know that it has transformed my life and allowed me also to experience so much more joy, and to have just such strong faith in the
Yes.
fact that like everything is working for my highest good and for the highest good
Exactly.
of others. Like
Yeah.
I have to trust that. I trust that because it's always been true, despite all of the things that have happened,
Yeah.
regardless of everything that occurs that seems to be chaotic or seems to be painful or seems to be, you know, challenging. It's all at the end of the day to serve my highest good and to serve the highest good of those around me. And so that really, that mindset and that kind of like energy just definitely allows you, I feel, to live more joyfully.
Yeah. It's thinking about things, and I think I've seen this on social media too, but it just clicks right now, is it's not that those things are happening to you, they're happening for you,
Yeah,
you know, for
totally.
your greater good, like you said. What's your answer to that question?
Um, well, that I agree with 100%. That has definitely been a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Um, and something else that I've learned, especially being back here, like being here has been so trippy because it's like the anniversary, not
Oh,
anniversary, but like 10 years after so much happened. Like 10 years ago, a lot happened
I got
here.
chills. I got chills because it's literally almost 10 years since
I now I
I
have
left
chills.
for Aruba. I left for Aruba in
Weird.
2010, and I moved back 9 years later, basically 9, 10 year later. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that a
Oh, I
trip?
have chills all over my body. That's
Yeah.
so weird. That's such a
Yeah.
trip. This is all
Wow.
a simulation. Oh my god. This is crazy. What? Look, I'm even red. That's so bizarre.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
makes
Finish your story. Okay.
sense.
Yeah. 10. So,
Excuse me. It makes sense. I mean, that's a huge thing for me. Like it's such a trip and it's so crazy because you really, when you understand that things are working for you, right? Even when you're uncomfortable,
mhm.
even when it's like really hard to like presently feel good about that because you're in a situation where you're like, get me out of here, hello.
Yeah.
Um, just knowing, right? Because no one can take that. It's a belief. It's an engraved belief already. Like I already know within my core that everything happens to serve my highest good. Like that's not.
Exactly.
I don't
Ex-
doubt that. It
yeah.
can be hard because I'm like, okay, but I'm ready. Like let's go, guys. Like I'm ready to go. I'm at the door.
Yes.
Are you outside?
Yeah.
You know. But at the end of the day, like my belief is that nothing can shift that. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Nothing that I
Yeah.
experience and nothing can knock my faith. And
Exactly.
so, right? And what that has done for me is that it just allows me to have so much and respect for in my life that didn't work out for me or that I didn't work out for because from in the past it used to be really hard for me to accept why things didn't work.
Mm.
Like why didn't this relationship work? Why
Mhm.
didn't this career work? Or why didn't this place that I live, why didn't it work there? Right? Like I used to hold
Yeah.
on to some of those things and that used to drain a lot of my energy because I used to tie it to my worth. I used to say like, oh, this didn't work because of me. This didn't
Yeah.
work because I wasn't enough, or this didn't work because maybe I did this and this pushed this person away, or maybe, right?
Yeah.
But now that I'm kind of like physically here and I see so many things come full circle, right? It's like, oh my goodness. I just love that God, the universe, whatever people resonate with, aligned everything for me, but for others too.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it didn't work out, relationships, jobs, whatever, it worked out for someone else. You get what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
worked out for me. So, for example, if it didn't work out for me at a job and they fired me, it was probably the perfect job for somebody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wouldn't have gotten that job unless I was fired, right?
Yeah.
So same with the relationship. If it didn't work out for me, right? That means it's gonna work out for me in another situation, but it's also gonna work out for them because they
Exactly.
deserve happiness and they deserve joy
Yes.
and love, right? So I have taken away so much value, not only for myself, but for like everyone. I just feel like everything works out in so many people that are experiencing things but for the other people involved as well, and I think that has allowed me to have a different level of love and appreciation for everyone that I've crossed paths with, even the people that I had friction with, even people that didn't, I mean, it all makes so much sense, and it gives me a sense of
such
peace.
a good like internal feeling.
Yes,
because I know exactly what you're speaking of, and I've felt that same feeling, and it's an indescribable feeling because it's a feeling, and each individual feels it a different way, but because I've experienced it, I know what you're talking about, and I know that level of like gratitude that you feel for someone, even though it didn't work out, because of where it brought you.
Yes.
And then from that point, exactly. And from that point, all you can do is just send them just more love, because you're just in this place of great, like gratitude, that it's just like, oh, like I can't explain it, but you know what I'm talking about, because it's a feeling.
Yes, exactly. I learned that about myself actually really quickly, and I feel like you're so similar, but some people think like with feeling, and I feel like I definitely do that. Like sometimes it's hard for me to express something or explain, because it's like, this is what I feel right now. Like, how can I deliver it to you, But you get me. Like 100%. That's exactly what I mean. Like everything, when you trust divine timing, you are free, because you don't hold on to things anymore, right?
Yes.
You don't, because it's happening for you and them. It's happening for you and them. So even if right now I'm like, let's say I like somebody, or I have feelings for somebody right now, or I start talking to somebody, I'm like, oh, hey, like, what's up? And then for whatever reason, they ghost me, right? Let's just say that they do that. Before, that would have hurt me, right? It would have hurt. And I'm not saying that I don't have feelings and nothing hurts me, but it may hurt me for a moment, and then I'm going to be like, oh, this is happening for me, and this is happening for them. For whatever reason, it's not working, and it's not going to, that's how it's supposed to be, because this is to serve my highest good, and this is to serve their highest good, and I trust that now. Versus before, I wasn't so free, because I would hold on to things more, because I would think, but what could I have done, and what could I have changed, and maybe if I did this, and it's like, no, there's nothing that you could have done. There's nothing that you could. It was specifically it happened exactly as it was supposed to, for as long as it was supposed to, and knowing that allows you to just live and be free and let go, and just feel so much more love and appreciation.
Agreed. I think that's a great place to end this too, because it's just,
I agree.
it's just a trust. It's literally a trust. And the cool thing about trusting divine timing is it won't ever be broken.
Oh no.
It's the one trust that's not ever broken.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps all over. Wow, that was beautiful. I love that. It never will. Wow.
Yeah. No.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you for tuning in. We love you. And we will see you in the fall. We don't have a date yet, but we will let you know.
Thank you for tuning in. All of you guys that have watched and listened so far, we appreciate you. We're gonna change some things. We're going to make some changes and have some more guests, and we're so excited for you guys to continue to be on this journey with us.
And thank you for viewing, sharing, commenting, liking, messaging us on other platforms. We appreciate it, and we hope that we help in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, we love you. Bye, everyone. Oh my gosh.
There! Oh, there we go.
Oh my God.
All right.